Now Tua in the concussion protocol. The Dolphins really don't know where to go from here. But, Joy, should the Dolphins consider shutting down Tua? Should they shut him down?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that it's really a whole lot to discuss about it. I mean, to contextualize the amount of injuries that he's had to his head, we have to stop saying he's had 3 head injuries or incidents around it, because obviously all of them haven't been ruled concussions, but there are at least head injuries. Okay. We keep saying a year is a football year. It's 3 months. The first one was September 25th. The last one was December 25th. 3-month period, he's had 3 head injuries, if you don't want to go as far as to call them concussions. At least 1 concussion. Right. And now this is the 3rd time he's been in concussion protocol. That's extremely dangerous. Again, none of us are doctors, all right? I am a doctor, but not a medical doctor. None of us are Tua's doctor. None of us are neuroscientists. We know enough about concussions to know that 3 concussions in 3 months is a lot. 3 head injuries in 3 months is a lot. Do you want to be the person that makes the call to put Tua back on the field and something devastating happens? No. Now, we all know everyone who plays this sport is at some level of that risk, no matter what position that you play, because it is a collision violent sport. We all know that. That goes without saying. It's almost redundant. There's no way to regulate this violence out of the sport. He will get hit again. He will get hit in his head again if he is on the field, because that's how the sport is played. So how do you take that risk? This is not what I wish for. This is awful. This is the worst case scenario. But you can't risk his entire future when this is something that is consistently happening. Who wants to be the person to clear him? Because if it's up to him, you have to imagine he still wants to play. But you talk about this all the time, protecting players from themselves. This is not a knee injury. This is not an elbow, your back, which could keep you from living a full, healthy life after football in some ways. But this is your head. It's unspeakable, the things that could go wrong if you continue to risk this. And now this is something that's happening at a very consistent basis, 3 times in 3 months. It's very serious.
Where you stand, 2-5, should the Dolphins shut him down?
You ain't got to finish. Shut him down. This year, next year, every year. It might be time for him to retire. And the reason why I say it is because what Joy talked about. So in football, you're going to get banged up, right? It's just part of the game. It's what you sign up for. But normally, it's small. It's not small, but it's different things. My shoulder might be bothering me. Might be my ankle. You're going to tweak something every other game. That's the name of the game. But in Tua's situation, it's always his head. And that's the least part of your body that you want to mess up. And it's hard to talk about it because, like, I know how for players like myself, we love the game. I don't want to let my teammate down. They depend on Tua. That team's not the same without Tua. He knows that. The players know that. Guy like Tyreek Hill, he came there for Tua. So you don't want to let your players down, but then it's like your safety. And when we talk about having these head injuries in a year, it's not a year. When you really said that, I'm like, dang, she's right, 3 months. And then let's just put it in perspective. Let's say he goes back out there, right, and he plays. You're hoping, oh, my God, I hope it's not his head. I hope he doesn't have another injury to his head. That'd be 4 in a couple of months. You can't sign your name off on that. I just think it's time for Tua to retire.
You know what's most fascinating about all this? Players do not self-report injuries. They don't do that.
Unless you banged up, like Doc, and you probably whisper, hey, Doc, I ain't feeling good. You know?
Players don't self-report injuries because players know the side effect of self-reporting an injury. Oh. You might have to miss time. So for Tua to self-report his concussion-like symptoms, he knew the outcome. Thus, imagine how severe the symptoms could have been for him to self-report. This is not self-reporting a cough. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? This isn't, hey, trainer, let me get some Robitussin.
Right.
This is, hey, I might need to see the neuroscientists again because I am experiencing different symptoms. Dave, let me come to you. Should the Dolphins shut him down?
Yes, I think they should. And actually, I mean, I love the point you're making, but we don't even have to guess what it says about the symptoms that he has. He just has a good enough memory to remember what already happened to him this year. That's the terrifying thing about this is that we've already lived it once. We did it already. Like we did a whole segment about it where we, in the context of a TV show, argued about whether he should play a game after this happened against the Bills. And we even said after the fact, we probably didn't make a big enough deal out of it. I'm not a doctor. I don't know the symptoms. I don't know if he has a concussion. I remember how I felt that Thursday night when he went down in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And we were all talking about, like, oh, my God, like, is this guy's career over? Is he in serious danger? Like, this is terrible. And it's happening again. So and again, I can't speak for Tua, but like he clearly remembers that happening and probably doesn't ever want to go through it again, I would assume. And so how can you, with that still being fresh in your mind, like that was end of September or beginning of October, how could you in good conscience do this again? Like, at the very least, he cannot play. He cannot play this weekend. I don't know how you do that.
No.
And then again, like even if you're talking about a wild card playoff game, that's only 2.5, 3 weeks away. He missed 3 weeks the last time this happened. Like, does any part of that seem smart to you? So at the bare minimum, I would not play him again in the regular season, and I think it would probably be advisable to say just call it a season altogether.
September 26th, we came on this show, and I was like, man, they won the battle, but I don't want them to lose the war.
Yeah.
Let's toss to it real quick. I got to get a couple things off my chest because while Tua won the battle, I want to make sure he wins the war. And it was, to me, confusing and to some degree disgusting to see Tua go back into the game after taking a blow that left him wobbling down the field. This is what I meant. September 26th, Bills game. Tua goes back into the game. They win the game. They definitely won the battle. It was a huge game. Buffalo Bills, Super Bowl favorites out of the AFC. Dolphins win that game, but it wasn't about the battle. For me, Joy, it was always about the war. It was always about the long-term war for Tua's health, the long-term war for Tua's career, the long-term war for Tua's longevity, both as a football player and Tua as a person. You can win the battle by playing him again, if you will, but I'm always thinking about the war, and it's not just about that one singular moment, but Tua hopefully can have a long career ahead of him. Joy, you said something as we prepared for this show. What kind of predicament do you think the Dolphins might be in light of where we are with head injuries, our lack of knowledge around head injuries, and now your star quarterback, who's supposed to be your franchise quarterback, now you are in a bind? What kind of predicament, both as a fan and as somebody who's covered the sport, do you think the Dolphins are now in? Well,
I think particularly this year with everything that happened with Mike McDaniel, with the ascension of Tua when he was playing well, and just the revamped brands temporarily, obviously, of this organization, we saw the capability that Tua had, the heights that he could reach. And so as a fan, you struggle with that because you want your team to win and you want the best players on the field. But we also always remember these are human beings. So we get a little lost in that, oh, this person gets traded or this person gets fired or this person sucks or whatever. Like, these are humans. And he's a long life, hopefully, after he's done playing.
That's right.
And he wants to live that life in fullness, enjoy the benefits that he received from being a professional athlete, like money and branding and being able to provide for his family, all those things. We know the seriousness of head injuries just as a society, particularly when it comes to the NFL. There's a long history of us ignoring the severity of it, CTE. We don't need to get into all the devastating things that have happened, but they're unspeakable. So I don't, the business side of it is like, obviously, they'll get to that when they get to it. But I think as a human person, like each team, you have connections with Philadelphia, right? You have connections with every team that you played with. You have connections with the Cowboys. I have connections with the Steelers, with the Dolphins. Like, they're part of the community. Like, the players that have played there, even if it goes badly, you still had an experience there. So you have a responsibility, like, as an organization, to put your players in the safest space. Forget, like, the PR part of it, which is obviously very real. You don't want that on your hands. You have to really sit down and evaluate, like, what is the possible benefit to the possible loss of putting somebody who has this many head injuries in such a short amount of time back on the field. I don't know how you do it this year. I think the outrage would be tremendous, honestly. I think there would be an immense amount of outrage if he played certainly this weekend and possibly even next weekend. But you have to have a real conversation about his future. And again, it's very sad. Like, I wanted to see Tua have a long career. I hope he still does. I don't know how you can play with this level of anxiety for such a serious thing. They got elbow replacement surgery and knees and hips. You only get one brain. Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.